Welcome everybody to the next video in my series, aimed towards helping new players choose which jobs they should play in Final Fantasy XIV. Last time we talked about Warrior, and today we're going to be diving into Paladin. This is a quick reminder that in this series we're not doing a tier list and saying which jobs are better than others, but more so which ones I recommend new players start with due to their approachability. Like Warrior, Paladin is available from level 1. The base class is called Gladiator. I've picked Paladin as my second tank that I recommend to newer players due to the burst window being pretty straightforward compared to some of its counterparts. The invulnerability is the most impactful, as well as the ability to sustain itself nearly on par with Warrior. If you're the type of person that likes to bring a little extra utility and party support while raiding or running group content, Paladin's your go-to. Let's do a quick run over of the basics. There will be some repeated mitigations here that were in the last video. Rampart, Reprisal, and Arm's Length are back once again, and still your go-to mitigations when running low-level dungeons. Rampart is a 20% mitigation. Reprisal is a 10% damage reduction on all foes around you. And lastly, Arm's Length will slow the rate at which foes deal damage to you with their attacks. It's worth mentioning, this does not work on most bosses. For class-specific mitigations, the first one we'll talk about is Sentinel. This is a slightly lower duration of 15 seconds compared to Rampart, but gives an entire 30% mitigation on yourself. Next up is Sheltron. This is arguably the most important one. At lower levels, Sheltron is a low duration mitigation of only 15%. Upon reaching level 82, this will be upgraded to Holy Sheltron, which will raise the duration to 8 seconds, as well as giving a heal over time, while also the first 4 seconds of Holy Sheltron will give you an additional 15% mitigation, meaning if you time it right before an attack, it'll count for the 30%. Alright, so the next ability we're going to talk about is called Bulwark. Bulwark is a 10-second mitigation that makes it so all incoming attacks are blocked. Block is a 20% mit. It is worth mentioning that Paladin is the only job in the game that has access to block. You can also randomly block as you're attacked by either tank busters or auto attacks. So there's a good chance that you'll just get a random 20% mit on some incoming hit. Whereas other jobs have what's called parry. Parry is the same thing, except it's a 15% mit. Just a random chance. Where Paladin's unique, though, is that Paladin still has access to parry and block randomly. So during your dungeon pulls, you'll notice that some attacks randomly get parried, and some attacks randomly get blocked. You can pair the block with your other mitigations like Rampart, Sentinel, or Sheltron. Paladin's invulnerability is called Hallowed Ground, and this is the best invuln in many cases due to its straightforwardness. The Paladin becomes invulnerable for 10 seconds. Cut and dry. The one con of this ability is its massive cooldown, clocking in at a whopping 7 minutes. You should try to use this at least twice in each dungeon, with one being relatively early to give you time for it to come back again. The next abilities we'll talk about is where Paladin shines. For starters, we'll have an ability called Intervention, which is very similar to Sheltron, except it only works when used on a party member. The amount of mitigation will increase from 10 to 20% if the Paladin currently has Rampart or Sentinel active, and gives an even further mitigation for the first 4 seconds of the cast, just like Sheltron. There's also a heal over time attached to this ability, and the skill is important for making clutch plays and saving squishier teammates in your raid if your healers need a hand. Or, if someone gets hit by an attack that they weren't supposed to, you can save them. Other than making saves with Intervention, it's also one of the best co-tanking abilities in the game, since many endgame tank busters will hit both tanks. Sheltron and Intervention do not share a cooldown, meaning you can give both yourself and your co-tank massive mitigation, without having to pick and choose who gets the met. Oftentimes, Paladin players who go above and beyond making use of Intervention will quickly gain the favors of the healers that they're playing with. The next tool in our kit is Divine Veil, which serves as a decent heal for your entire party, as well as applying a shield. Many Paladin players will pre-place the shield and not make use of the heal, which I deem a mistake. It's best used after your party has taken some damage and has more incoming raid damage, allowing you to both top people off with the heal, as well as provide a shield for the next round of damage. For those who watched the Warrior video, it's basically a more straightforward version of Shake It Off. After Veil, we have Passage of Arms. Passage of Arms is a mitigation that gives anyone behind the Paladin 15% mitigation. You can hold this ability and channel it for 18 seconds if you so choose, but it is best used where you just tap it between your GCD, and it will persist for 5 seconds on party members that were within the wings. If you compare all of the tanks' group shielding and or mitigations, Paladin is the only tank in the game to have an additional tool in this regard. There's one more utility skill called Cover. That will allow you to take all of the damage that another player is taking for them. Other than a few niche cases, this ability doesn't have many optimal uses, as in 99.9% of cases, using intervention is far superior. But every once in a while, they release a savage or ultimate mechanic that may have a use for cover. But in general, don't overthink this ability, it's not very useful. It's time to talk about our offensive abilities now. First, we'll gloss over all the abilities and what they do individually. I'll then go over how to utilize them while leveling, and we'll close things out with a level 90 rotation that anyone can pick up with a few minutes of practice. We'll talk about the GCDs first, and oGCDs second. Okay, for GCDs. For physical attacks that Paladin has, we have our basic combo, Fast Blade, Riot Blade, and Rage of Hallowed. At level 60, Rage of Hallowed is going to be upgraded to Royal Authority, and I'll be calling it Royal Authority for the remainder of the video. Total Eclipse and Prominence are our AOE combos for physical damage. At level 54 onward, we will unlock a GCD ability called Goring Blade. It's on a 1-minute cooldown and serves as a high-hitting burst attack. Lastly, at 76, we unlock another GCD attack called Attonement. Attonement can only be used after using Royal Authority, meaning if we do our Fast Blade, Riot Blade, Royal Authority combo, we can then use 3 charges of Attonement to deal more damage. Our magic attacks are Holy Spirit and Holy Circle. Holy Spirit is our single target magic attack, while our AoE variant is Holy Circle. The other magical attack that we have is called Confiteor. We'll come back to this when we talk about oGCDs. For oGCDs, first up we'll have Fight or Flight, which is a 20-second damage buff for all attacks within the window, including other oGCDs and our magic attacks. Next, we have Spirits Within, which is a single target damage ability, and at level 86, this will be promoted to Expiation, and also will do AoE damage. We also have Circle of Scorn, which is an AoE around the Paladin that applies a damage over time. Intervene is our gap closer. This will be unlocked to level 74 and does modest damage. And finally, and most importantly, we have an ability called Requiescat. Requiescat will empower the next 4 magical attacks that the Paladin uses, as well as remove the cast time. So, after using Rec, you can cast Holy Spirit 4 times consecutively for massive damage, as well as them not having a cast time. Or, conversely, Holy Circle for AoE damage. This will trump your AoE combo, so always make use of it in dungeon pulls. At level 90, Requiescat will also let you use 4 Confiteors instead of Holy Spirits, which is where most of your damage in your kit comes from. They hit like a truck, and also do damage to foes around the target selected. Now, that was seemingly a lot of abilities, but Paladin, much like Warrior, is pretty chill, and it's pretty slow paced as well with its damage profile. For Paladins at all levels, the objective of the job is to cram as much damage into the 20-second window of Fight or Flight. This section of the video is going to show the level 90 Paladin damage rotation, as well as talk about how we can make some of the quirks of the job work in our favor. I'll include a timestamp if you want to skip this section. Right, so every time we complete our Royal Authority combo, we gain a stack of Divine Might. It's worth noting that a Divine Might stack of Holy Spirit will do 450 potency, versus Attonements of 400 potency. This is important because, other than the opener, we can get 2 uses of Divine Might in every single fight or flight window. Let's talk about the opener now. You're doing a raid, you'll cast Holy Spirit when the countdown is at 2 seconds. Open with a Fast Blade, Riot Blade, and Royal Authority. Then we'll have our first double weave of Fight or Flight and Requiescat in that order, and follow up with a Goring Blade. We'll use all of our Confiteors here, as well as dumping our intervention stacks. Don't forget to also do Circle of Scorn and Expiation. Afterward, we'll make use of our last Holy Spirit proc that we have, and our Attonements. And with that, our burst phase will end. Our filler rotation is our Royal Authority combo, followed by using 3 Attonements, as well as the single Holy Spirit proc we get. Once we're done with all those procs, move on to the second filler. It's important that after we do this Royal Authority and the next round of Attonements, that we save this stack of Divine Might. As we enter the next Fight or Flight window, our first GCD will be that Divine Might stack we held, and then follow up with finishing our Royal Authority combo, which grants us another stack. Then, like before, we use our Goring Blade, Confiteors, and our 30-second oGCDs inside of the Fight or Flight window. At this point, the rotations should feel pretty comfortable and start looping. It's also worth noting that your 30-second oGCDs, Circle of Scorn, and Expiation, will want to be used off cooldown, as you'll get another usage of them out of your buff window. That covers most of the basics for Paladin, both as a new player or as an endgame player. Its sustain rivals Warrior, and the utility that it brings to a raid environment even surpasses Warrior. The damage rotation is easy to approach and very satisfying to execute. These are just some of the reasons why I think new players should give Paladin a go. If you have any questions about Paladin, feel free to put them down below, or check me out live at twitch.tv/AhriEffect, where we'll be playing a ton of Paladin on stream, doing mental roulettes and other stuff, while fielding questions from chat, and just giving general suggestions and tips about how to play it. I really appreciate you guys all watching, and next time we'll be tackling White Mage.